Welcome to Something to Talk About, Discipline and the Special Education Student. In this presentation, we will go over what is discipline? What do we actually mean by that word? What is the difference between discipline and punishment? They are not synonyms. How are the expectations of regular ed discipline and special ed discipline different? And is this really fair? Before we get started, what does the Kansas Special Ed Process Manual say about this? Specifically, it says that schools must use customary disciplinary techniques for all children, including those with disabilities. The school's focus should be on prevention, that is, methods used to prevent future occurrences of behavior problems. Schools may use a school-wide, multi-tiered system of positive behavioral interventions and supports, MTSS or PBIS, for all children in the school. For children with disabilities, traditional forms of discipline such as in-school suspension, detention, timeout, study carrels, or the restriction of privileges can also be used, so long as these forms of discipline are also used with non-disabled children and do not violate the provisions of a child's individualized education program, IEP, or the child's right to a free, appropriate public education, FAPE. Most legal problems arise when a school proposes to suspend or expel a child with a disability. When the issue is suspension or expulsion, the law has special provisions which sometimes require schools to treat children with disabilities differently than other children. This is what we will be looking at throughout this presentation. Discipline. We all need it at some time. It's a simple fact. At some point, everyone is going to mess up or make the wrong decision, and they will need discipline. But what is it? Let's start by thinking of a couple scenarios that might catch us, as adults, needing discipline. Think of this. You're walking through the store, let's say it's Home Depot, and you walk past the power tool section. The power tools might not pull to you, but maybe they'll call to someone else. And if they're calling you, you know you can't just walk past them without at least looking. So you take a look and you find yourself holding the newest, highest powered circular saw that can do everything and more than you really need. And you do have that project just waiting on you to get started. And your old circular saw isn't quite as powerful as this one. Wow, that project would sure be a breeze with this saw. Or what about this situation? You're trying to make a phone call. It's pretty important, and your call just won't go through. You look at your phone and realize it's about 2 years old, and you start searching for a new one. Good grief, this old phone just isn't working right. And here's a new one that's supposed to run twice as fast and have 3 times the memory and all of these built-in functions. Now, there are a lot of other situations that could call us, and every one of us would get called by a different situation. Shoes for some people, cars for others. But here's a situation that, as teachers, I'm thinking might reach all of us. Teachers pay teachers. Now, as adults, what do we do? Do we just buy everything we want, regardless of what we already have at home and what our bank account says? Absolutely not. We discipline ourselves. Some of us do this with self-talk. You know what it sounds like. I don't really need this. I have 2 other pair at home, just about this same color. Or the one I have will work just fine for now. Or the phone I have just needs to be charged. Or I can finish the project with the saw I have. Or what about this one? I can't afford to be overdrawn. I have bills to pay. This is the self-talk we use to keep ourselves out of trouble. We are adults. We have practiced it, but we didn't always know how to do this. We had to be taught. And this is where discipline comes in. Discipline is an act of training someone to behave in accordance with rules or a code of behavior. Take a minute and just read this slide. When we just read through this and we stop to think about it, it really makes sense, doesn't it? Punishment is controlled by fear. It sounds like this: I'm going to send you to the principal's office if you keep doing that. Instead of guiding and teaching with discipline, which sounds like this: when you do this behavior, it makes others think that you want to hurt them. Is that really what you want to do? What can you do instead to get the attention you want? Now, punishment often leaves a child feeling angry or resentful. It does not help them and you build a good relationship, but it might stop the behavior for now. But often the same behavior or a similar behavior will come out in other ways. Discipline, however, takes extra time to try to understand the root cause of the behavior. It takes time and patience, but it teaches the student to problem solve and helps them build themselves up as they learn self-discipline. It also helps the child to learn to discipline themselves. The word discipline brings up this quote from Peggy O'Mara: "The way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice." Personally, I feel this is important to remember. So let's start by looking at what we know about all kids. Yeah, they're all different. You read that right. Take a look around the room. Or think of the people you teach with. Are all of you exactly the same? Same responses in situations, same lifetime experiences which influence how you think, same family experiences, same teaching experiences, same medical needs. There are a lot of things that make us different from one another, a lot of ways that we respond differently to things that happen to us and around us. Just like the kids we work with. In the same way that we are, as adults, all different and expect individualized treatment based on who we are, the kids we work with are also all different and deserve individualized treatment based on who they are and what their individual needs are. Now, there may be some kids that we work with who thrive in the school setting. They seem to know exactly what is expected. They fit in. They understand the rules and how to behave. Many of the kids are able to work within the rules with only a small number of relatively uninvasive reminders to do the right thing. You know what I mean. The "I don't approve of your behavior" look. Or how about the "I'm going to stand behind your chair and place my hand on your shoulder"? These will often encourage a student to change their behavior and to do better. But then we have the other kids who don't respond to discipline attempts. And they face the punishment that the school offers to help them change their behavior choices. Suspension. Let's face it, there will always be the kid who does not change their behavior to fit the rules and norms and will be suspended. What will we do with them? You know these kids. They come in every size, from every race, from every culture, and in every disability category. Now this one, I'm just kind of checking to see if you're still paying attention. This last slide is of Kim Jong-un, the North Korean dictator, for those of you who don't just recognize him. Just a reminder, now we are talking about a Code of Student Conduct violation. This is a dangerous behavior that has the potential to harm either the student himself or others, or the student has exhibited a behavior that has already harmed someone. Basically, when we discipline a regular education student, we look for the root cause. What made this student decide to do this behavior? And we try to help them work through that choice or that decision and make better decisions in the future. For a special ed student, it's the same thing. But just so you get the full picture of how discipline is different when a regular education student does something and a special education student does the same thing, here's a quick visual of how it looks in the school. This is Sandy, a regular education student. She just did something that broke the Code of Student Conduct. What do we do? We follow the district discipline guidelines. Now, let me introduce you to Sally. This is Sally, a special education student. She just did the same thing that broke the Code of Student Conduct. What do we do? Yeah, seriously, folks, this just keeps going for another 4 pages at least. So instead of having you read all 4 pages, I'm going to give you Kimmy's notes. Here are the Kimmy's notes of discipline for a special education student. First, there are no generalized disciplinary procedures for special education students. Yep, you read that right. Everything is done on a case-by-case basis. But there's a short questionnaire that will help you determine how to decide what to do in each case. Now, it might seem like a lot initially, but think about it. Wouldn't you want to have your special and specific situation taken care of individually instead of generically? So, how does this work? First, you determine if the child is a child with a disability. Now, if the child's only exceptionality is determined to be gifted, then none of this applies to them. Second, if the child has other exceptionalities, then you keep reading. If the child is not identified already, then we consider if it's possible or likely that the school should have known that the child is a child with a disability. If so, keep reading. The second thing we do, we consider, does the anticipated disciplinary action involve suspension or expulsion? If it doesn't, then you're finished with this part. Follow the behavior intervention plan that you have set up in the IEP, or set one up so that the student is taught how to begin to self-discipline. If the disciplinary action does involve suspension or expulsion, keep reading, because now we're to number 3. We determine how many cumulative school days has a child been suspended during the current school year. If he has already been out of school for 10 days, then we have more work to do. And by the way, when you're counting the days, you have to count them all together, not just the ones that were consecutive. And you have to count the partial days as full days. If the suspension is less than 10 days, the school still needs to look at the root cause of the behavior, meaning, why did the student really do this? And number 4, we determine if the behavior was subject to discipline under the Code of Student Conduct involving weapons, drugs, serious bodily injury, or